Prices of goods and services remain high in September. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority reveals inflation accelerated to 6.9%, higher than the 6.3% in August. The latest number is also the highest in 4 years. Rising prices of food, electricity, and restaurant services drove inflation higher. Joining us now for his insights and outlook is RCBC Chief Economist Michael Ricafort. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Inflation remained painfully high and is continuing to bore a hole in many of our kababayans' back pockets. Are you concerned?
Well, it's a global problem, Rico. In fact, other countries have higher inflation than ours. Theirs in developed countries, it ranges between 8 to 10%. In the US, it's at the highest in more than 40 years at 8.3%. So
but
really
Michael, I'd like to jump in. We cannot compare ourselves to the rest of the world because the United States and Europe are developed economies. We are a developing third world economy, and we have a very high poverty incidence rate. And this impacts many of our kababayans who are in the marginalized sector.
True, Rico, because of the limited budgets by the poor, especially now that we just came from the pandemic, we're just recovering barely. So higher prices are really not welcome. It really eats up on their limited budgets that may force them to tighten their belts. If not, some of them may even borrow. So because most of the inflation have been imported in nature because of the higher global oil price since the war started between Russia and Ukraine last February 24, though oil prices already started to go down to January levels. So, and also another component to inflation is the weaker peso as well. The peso already weakened by about 15% since the start of the year. So it adds up to the cost of imported products. Well, everything that we import, since most of the imports are paid in US dollars. So that already adds up outright 15% on the prices of all imported goods and services.
Michael, with the confluence of factors, will inflation likely accelerate even further in October and November? Plus, you also have to add into the equation fare hikes kicking in this month, and food prices also pressured by the storm damages.
That's true, Rico. Actually, it's already reflected in the September inflation also. The temporary spike in food prices brought about by Super Typhoon Carding because it hit the major food-producing provinces and regions in northern and central Luzon. The biggest producers of rice, corn, vegetables. And to think that the biggest weight in the inflation basket is food, nearly 40% weight, and rice alone accounts for nearly 10%. So yeah, hopefully that would be temporary. And then
so
also,
what is RCBC's outlook for October? Will it go past 7%, maybe 7.2, 7.3%?
Yeah, Rico, around 7%. That would be for October. So that would be the peak already, even mathematically. Come November, December, the year-on-year inflation would tend to already ease a bit. And however, we need to contend also with the fact that there are seasonality factors. As we move towards the Yuletide or the Christmas season, there would be some seasonal increase in the prices of Noche Buena items. These are the likes of pork, chicken, vegetables, and other meat products. Especially around November, December, because it's the demand-supply dynamics. There would be greater demand towards the holiday season, but only to go down around January. So we need to contend with that also. But nonetheless, even with that into consideration, the likely peak would be around 7% already.
So are you...
well, at least...
Michael, are you disappointed or contented that the central bank has not been aggressive in its interest-raising exercise? And of course, the government, they have not been able to protect consumers from soaring prices.
Well, first, most of the inflation that the country has been experiencing largely external or imported in nature that are beyond the country's reasonable control, like the strengthening of the dollar versus global currencies, as well as the movement in global commodity prices. And of course, the imported inflation. If inflation is also relatively high in developed countries, in other countries around the world where we buy our imports, that's also included in our equation. No? That's also added to the prices that we import. And so far, the peso has been fairly stable since last week at 58 levels. So so far, that's a good sign. We're already moving into the fourth quarter. There would be some seasonal increase in remittances,
Yeah.
most especially towards November and December. And the importation season, in preparation for the seasonal peak in demand and in sales, well, that's already
Michael,
almost done at this point.
So Michael, what do you say to our kababayans, our consumers who are suffering from these high consumer prices? I mean, they can't look 2-3 months down the road. They deal with day-to-day expenses and salaries every 15 days. What do you tell them about prices, and when will they come back down?
Well, at least the leading indicator is oil. The global price of oil, well, that was one of the biggest causes for the higher inflation worldwide, especially since the war broke out in February. But now, oil prices have gone down to $80 per barrel levels. It came from a high of $130 last March 7, and middle of July, the last high that we saw was $123. Because of now, we have to deal with recession concerns as well in the US, which is the world's biggest economy, and some lockdowns in China that partly brought about the downward correction in global oil prices. So this is at least one source of hope going forward, a leading indicator. We have seen that already in the rollbacks in our gasoline and diesel prices. Oil already at the lowest since the latter part of January this year. Well, however, what has slowed down the decline or the rollbacks is the weaker peso, because that adds to the cost of imported oil and many other commodities that the country buys from abroad. Because, for the month of September, the depreciation was 4.4%. For the month of August, it was 1.8%. But so far, for the second week already, it's already stable.
Okay.
Because of so far, we have seen already the local authorities, we have seen a series of rate hikes to somewhat help stabilize both the peso as well as the overall inflation. Because both are intertwined, to speak. So that's why it's very important to have that kind of stability going forward. And besides, the local authorities have a good track record in maintaining the stability of the currency. For instance, from 2004 and up to September 1 of this year, the previous record high was 56.45. So that was maintained for 18 good years. So they have a good track record. So to speak, going forward. And now they're coming up with various measures also to help stabilize everything on the currency front.
All right,
now, they're also tightening the reportorial requirements of foreign exchange transactions and other liquidity measures to siphon off some of the excess pesos, so that there would be less pesos to buy dollars in the financial system, among many other measures, as well as intervention measures also more.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in. We've run out of time. Thank you so much for your insights on rising consumer prices and the peso against the dollar. RCBC Chief Economist Michael Ricafort.